Alright, so hey everyone. Today I want to take a look at the Deadzones for Gori, Cuddly Carnage. This is being demonstrated on the Xbox Series X, in case it differs on other platforms. But to start with the movement, we have a 25% axial Deadzone. Movement starts very slow, so that might not be too noticeable, but at least when changing into these axial directions, you can see that pivot pretty clearly. But because of its shape, the diagonals are a little larger than 25%. But because it is an axial deadzone, this deadzone extends through the entirety of each axis, and that causes diagonal movement around each axis to be limited. So you can see that I can move the stick in these blue regions and move in one of four directions perfectly. So perfectly forward, perfectly right, perfectly left, and perfectly down. You don't start seeing diagonal movement until you break out of both axial deadzones, which is the screen region. Because of the shape, the restriction is heaviest right around the deadzone, and you can see this clearly as all the diagonal movement is scrunched up in these corners. But this won't be felt as much because most of the game is spent with the stick pressed fully. So the restriction encompasses this 25% maximum stick tilt, but you have this arc range where all your diagonals are blended into. This is a little difficult to show in this range, but all your diagonals are in the screen region. So at max tilt, you have a decent amount of range for your diagonals, but it is still pretty heavily limited. This restriction is mostly noticeable in straightaways in the game, where if you want to make minor corrections, you can feel that you need to move the stick significantly before seeing Gori start changing direction. There is a full spectrum of movement speeds, so you can see that very slow right past the deadzone, and as you push the stick further, you move faster. So, as I've said, most of the game is spent, pushing the stick fully. So, this granularity isn't necessary, but it is a nice bit of granularity to have. Speaking of movement, the left stick also controls the world map screen. So, and this is exactly the same as movement. So, no surprises here. And you can see the restriction is still present here. You can see it pretty easily with the rocket's direction changing. The camera is the exact same, so a 25% axial deadzone. And the same amount of restriction, so you can see that I can bob right around the vertical axis, and I'm moving perfectly horizontally, and you don't start seeing diagonal movement occur until break out of both axis deadzones. And this is most easy to see when capping the view like this and looking for horizontal movement. There, for the curve, we have a perfect linear curve, so just a smooth transition from the deadzone all the way to maximum stick tilt. The sensitivity ranges from at the default sensitivity is about 105 degrees per second. You can see that I'm playing at the maximum. And this is about 210 degrees per second. So it's brisk, but not particularly fast. But at the minimum, you can get as low as about 10 degrees per second. So that's a pretty wide range that the slider offers you. I couldn't test the exact sensitivity for aiming, and because of the time limit, but at least testing the maximum speed, this seems to be about 50% of your general camera. So this is your general camera, and this is your aiming camera. So if that's consistent, then aiming is 50% of the general camera sensitivity at the same values. They do offer an option for look acceleration, and this is smoothing in other games, or in how I mostly refer to it as. Smoothing has your turn speed build up over time, so like if you make quick movements, you won't see them reflected immediately because it requires some time to build up. So you can see that I'm spinning around, but if I switch directions, you can see it stop and then take a second to build up and build to the maximum speed it was moving before. So there's that little lull when switching directions. And you can see that it's instant when I do it here. And they give you options for the intensity of it if you like it, but maybe want a specific amount of it. So that's cool to have. Now for the camera, there is aim assist options, and it seems that for even if you disable aim assist, there's still tracking on the enemy, so as you aim past target, your sensitivity will slow down, and that doesn't seem to be disabled with aim assist. What it seems to disable is the auto snap when for initially aiming. If you're close enough, you'll snap to the target. Occasionally when it's off, it'll still be enabled, and I don't know, maybe that's always on by default, and then you either have to remind it to disable by enabling it and redisabling it if you want it off. That makes sense to keep the pace up, just because there's a few sections where it wants you to aim at things while platforming, but the aim assist option doesn't disable the entirety of aim assist, just the snap. It keeps the slowdown. But the main thing with aiming is, of course, this axial dead zone can be more present while there's aim assist, and you have actually quite a bit of slowdown, especially when leveled up. It doesn't really affect gameplay, but you can feel the axial dead zone when trying to make precise adjustments, since you are the most limited right around the dead zone. So you can feel like you're kind of etch-a-sketching when making smaller movements, and that's just from the axial dead zone. One thing that I don't normally speak of is the diagonal speeds. So you can see that my thumbstick can lean beyond this radial threshold, and if it wasn't limited by the controller faceplate, you'd have a full square range to work with, and because of that, your diagonals can be faster if not normalized, and in this case, this is not normalized. So if you moved your stick, to the perfect corner, you'd be able to get about 140% of your cardinal speed, so the speed left and right, and up and down. The vertical sensitivity seems to be the same as the horizontal. So you could move a little faster there. This isn't really noticeable because one, you can see my controller can't lean that far, and the axial dead zone will warp thresholds to push the thresholds out there, so I'm probably right on that line anyway. But that's just something that's come up in testing. So, that about covers things. Now, this is an Unreal game, so the developers might not have set up these axial dead zones themselves. It could just be the engine preset. I know Unreal Engine 4 defaulted to axial dead zones, so that could be the case with Unreal Engine 5, and those were just used throughout development. But it doesn't break the game. I mean, obviously it's quite playable, and there's both aim assist as far as aiming, but when attacking melee enemies as well as some ranged enemies, you have quite generous melee tracking, so these dead zones don't really affect gameplay. It's just, at least when moving, it's just when you're moving in straightaways, you can feel that a little more than in other times. But that covers things, so thanks for watching, and everyone, have a great rest of your day.